Welcome everybody today's for the Enlightened Uncensored Chats. This week we are covering duality pros and cons because duality is coming up a lot on the collective, a lot of differences between duality, and we'll get into that as we go into it. Really excited today to have Cynthia Rose here with us. She has been a guest on our show already, but just for those who haven't seen her, she is an emotions code practitioner. She is the Navajo Featherweight practitioner, shamanic practitioner, breathwork practitioner. She's a freaking badass, excuse my language, and a cosmic wizard. Yes, we added that because she's a badass.
Love it.
So welcome, guys, and I'm really excited to have you, Cynthia. Before I let you say hi to the group, a couple of reminders, guys, or actually an update. Today, I believe, will be my last Enlightened and Uncensored Chats. I'm doing a whole remake. I'm getting this strong guidance to like redo everything, and it's like that up leveling. So I don't know what I'm going to be bringing in the future. So hopefully it's something where I can bring people in because I absolutely love having Cynthia here. Of course, that's why she's back. So that's an update for you guys. Now, Cynthia, will you want to say hello to everybody?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully we can co-create a fascinating conversation for all of you.
I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah. Thanks for the great introduction, Lauren. Hopefully I can live up to that.
You always have.
Awesome. Thank you.
So everybody, just a reminder, I'm seeing a bunch of comments already. Thank you so much for being here, guys. Sheldon, Helen, Allie, and I think I see some more comments in there. Thank you for being here. We're going to get to any questions or any comments at the end so that we can just flow into this conversation. So feel free as we're going, if there's something you want to say, like go for it. We're going to check it at the end. All right.
I'm going to hop off the comments so they're not distracting me. Okay, there we go. All right, Lauren, duality.
Yes. Where would you like to start with duality, pros and cons?
Yeah, well, so Lauren suggested that we talk about duality today. And I mean, I have my own constructs around what's helpful to talk about. And Lauren, you said that it's been coming up for you recently. In what regard have you noticed duality and how has it impacted you? First of all, I guess, what is duality?
To me, and actually, guys, I don't think my signal is that great, so let me switch something real quick. But to me, yeah, I don't know why my computer likes to.
That looks better.
Cool. Yeah. My computer likes to be jumpy. Duality to me is like it's like a separation. Okay, I'm not going to give a good definition here, but it's like this like polar opposites, right? It's a polarized aspects of things: good, bad, right, wrong, left, right, like higher emotions, lower vibrational emotions. So that's kind of the idea of duality. And we've lived like that in my opinion, we've lived like that for so long in like this 3D sense. That's, you learn good, bad, you learn right, wrong, you learn like the complete opposites. You have horrible times and like you feel sad and depressed, and you have really great times. That's kind of my idea of duality. I'd love to hear your stance on it.
Okay, yeah. So essentially what we're saying is that duality is a black and white. And it kind of forms, I think, a construct for black and white thinking, which is where we can get ourselves into trouble. Because then when we don't, it's funny because Sheldon and I talked about this in one of our conversations back a couple of years ago during COVID, that when we don't embrace gray area thinking, we tend to go into a lot of judgment of things in a way that's not necessarily helpful. For me, I like to think of, duality is absolutely, it's like the polar opposites, right? In order for us to have this experience at all, we have to have duality as contrast, right? So duality offers us a sense of contrast. If we only had light, we wouldn't know dark. If we only had dark, we wouldn't know light. So it's just the operating system that we agreed to, I think, when we came into the model of the technology that is the human body, is that we have we can define it as ego, but whatever. The mind sees things with contrast. So it has a dualistic, polarized point of view that includes duality, right? Because in order for there to be any kind of contrast, we have to have that. So that includes also then judgment of things. And if we shift our relationship to duality, this is where the pros and cons come in. The pros of duality is that we get to have the experience, because without it, what are we doing? We're just the orbs of light floating around with nothing. Like, we're just being, right? So the construct of the mind, or the operating system of the mind, allows us to see things in contrast, right? But when we judge, when we sit in a place of that judgment of the contrast as good or bad, black or white, then good or evil, all of that, then we're setting ourselves up for some sort of failure in that, because if we can look at, let's say we're looking at somebody's behavior and we're saying, oh, let's say a child, oh, that's a good boy, or that's a bad boy. That's bad behavior, so you're a bad boy. Instead of saying, well, that behavior is helpful and that behavior is not helpful. It's the charge that comes with that, I guess, how we as human beings create judgment about one versus the other. Because black isn't inherently bad and white isn't inherently good. We've just placed value systems around these things. So I guess that's a good point for jumping off for a response from you. That answer your question?
Perfect. We're just flowing down. How I've explained it in some of my videos and stuff too is we also look at duality with truths. This is true. Yeah. This is fact. This is false.
Right.
And the thing is when we think about this, okay. So my standpoint with duality, guys, like, as a collective, we may be still in that place of duality. My standpoint with it is, as we're moving into the future, we're completely letting go of duality. And that's kind of what we're learning in right now, in a sense of having that, like, that judgment, as she was talking about, and the polarization of the judgment of it. But the part that we're getting into is like, we all have our own truths. And so if we have this idea that there's good and bad, and there's fact or fiction, or like true and false, like, oh, that's true, that's not true, then we're not actually looking at ourselves internally. And a really good example of that is like how half the world saw that blue black dress, or it was like gold or whatever, and like, no, it's this one. The other half's like, no, it's this one. Actually, the truth was to what that person saw the dress as, and that was their truth. So letting go of this idea that there only could be one truth of the matter takes away the perspectives and how we're seeing what it is itself.
Right.
So like, that's just a huge thing for me. So like letting go of, okay, I'm jumping ahead. I'll stop there.
No, I like what you said. Letting go of.
Like, what we're getting to is letting go of the judgment that one side is right or wrong, or good or bad. That's where we're heading into for the future.
Yeah, I agree completely. Well, that would be where it would be beneficial to head, for sure, because if we continue on this way, it's not really going to be a good time. We've done this for long enough that I think we're pretty much expert level, like, judgers of the experience. And, I touched on this earlier, and I think everything that you said, it's kind of summed up in that idea of, instead of, demonizing duality, I was thinking about this morning. It's about leveraging duality to our benefit and saying it's not about this versus that. It's about this and that. There is room for all things if we make room for all things, and without having to sit there and say, well, this, sure, we can have an experience that feels pretty freaking awful, like this certain things, and we all know what those things are. They feel pretty bad, but at the same time, if you're not sitting in judgment of it, and I was thinking about this the other day, we can do it with something. I was thinking about sadness, okay, because I was feeling these waves of sadness that were coming in. Well, okay, so we're talking about duality. What's the contrast to sadness? joy, happiness, we know that feels different, doesn't it? But if we can say, okay, it feels better and this feels worse, okay, it's going to feel better and worse. But if we say, well, this just feels like this and this feels like this, it doesn't have to be judged as better or worse. So I was sitting with this feeling of sadness, and it was feeling like it was coming from someone else, because I wasn't having any legitimate reasons or valid reasons in that moment to be feeling sad for myself in my own experience. And I was thinking, oh, I don't like how this feels. It's so yucky. I just want to move out of it really fast. And then I stopped myself and I thought, no, I'm going to sit with it. And I'm not going to judge it. I'm just going to sit with this feeling as an experience of feeling something different. And when I think the key to all of it is when we can see the gift in all things, then it takes that negativity out of it, that perspective that something is not useful. Because if we look at all things as, okay, there's something about this is useful, that is useful for me, or I would not be having this experience, then we're empowering ourselves to have an experience with it that is not going to be detrimental to our well-being. We stop sabotaging ourselves and we start saying, hey, I feel really curious about what this is. And something as simple as this is an example that people could even try at home. We tend to have a judgment around cold, feeling cold. Maybe not all of us, but most of us do. Like when I feel cold, I'm like, oh, I feel cold. I don't like it. And my partner, back when we first got together, was talking to me about Wim Hof and that breathing method that we use for Wim Hof. And I started the breathing method and I thought, well, if I don't change the thoughts in my mind about my relationship to cold, this experience is not going to look any different for me. So instead of polarizing that hot, cold, it was like, okay, this doesn't feel bad. It's just different than hot. And immediately, as soon as I do that, anytime I ever feel cold, I remind myself, if I change my perspective and my relationship to cold, then it doesn't feel bad for me. It's just something that I'm feeling. So, yeah.
100%. When you're saying that, what popped up, I taught this a little while ago, is, okay, think of like all of the emotions, right? The vibrational energies of the emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think of it almost like a scale, and it's like, if we think of sadness and grief, because you said sadness was coming up, grief came up for me like crazy. And I was having such a release to where I've never cried this hard in my life. And it was like I was crying not only for the grief inside, it was like this soul cry and this like a mini lifetime cry. It was like a both, and it freaking hurt. It did. It hurt.
My God, I know. I've been there.
And the thing is that if we judge pain or sadness as, oh my gosh, like this is bad, we're going to block it off. We're going to suppress it. We're not going to want to feel it. What happens is when we block off these bad feelings, we also block off the height of what we can feel that are quote unquote good feelings.
Yep, that's true.
So I absolutely love what you said with being the observer part. So whenever I was crying, I was just letting it out. I was being the observer. I was feeling it. I wasn't giving it any positive, negative, yada, yada. I was just feeling it. But what has really opened up in the past for me was like, whenever I would go into these deep, sad emotions, I would feel the heights of the joy of the other higher vibrational emotions that I didn't feel in a while. Because I'm finally just letting it be.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
yeah. And, interestingly, I love that. Interestingly enough, we have somebody in our common experience that we know that's having this experience of contrast with like, something that feels really yucky versus something that feels like bliss, almost like this, like, woo, we're doing this. And, I think the thing that causes, or the thing I think that contributes to things feeling bad is that we have some kind of fear around it. When we go into that fear mind of like, oh God, this is bad. What is this going to mean for me? Am I going to fall apart? Whatever it is, like, will I survive this is sometimes a question. when we're going through something that feels like what you were describing, that intense grief and heartbreak, it can literally feel like our body, our heart is splitting and breaking. And you know, if we can sit with that and really truly be present with that, and the thoughts and feelings around it too, maybe the judgment around it too, but also at the same time say, you know, this too is beautiful. This is such a beautiful experience, because like you said, Lauren, it's so true. Without the depths of that stuff, we couldn't experience the heights of the other stuff. And that is the beauty of contrast and the beauty of duality. And I think it's the reason that all of us were like, yeah, put me in, coach. Like, I want to do that again. You know, that sounds like a lot of fun. Because if you think about it, outside of this experience, if we're only in one aspect of self, like that's just blissful and euphoric, and we might get a little bored with that as curious beings after a while and be like, all right, I want to see what this other stuff feels like. So if we come here knowing, I mean, we don't know, we forget that we made the agreement to come here. But if we come here and we forget that we asked for this, and that the key is to find the gift in all of it, then we are going to have a rough time with it, you know. But to see the gift in all of it is, it's a skill, and it needs to be a daily practice, sometimes even a moment-to-moment practice, but it's possible. And it's leveraging the power of the mind in tune with the unified lens of the heart, seeing things through grace and saying, okay, you know, there's room for all the feelings, and there is no negative emotion and positive emotion. That's another construct, right? It's a cognitive construct that we've developed that's not necessarily the most beneficial thing, because all emotions are absolutely necessary in this reality, and they're useful. But it's when we're destructive with stuff that it ends up being a problem, you know? So if we're constructive versus destructive with all of the things that we experience, it's just an experience, and it's kind of cool.
I love it.
It's empowering.
So empowering.
Yeah.
What came up whenever you're talking about that too. So we're talking about the I don't know what I was going to say there. We're talking about duality.
Yeah.
And recently this has been coming up for quite a few clients of mine. It's like this this is too much.
Yeah.
Too
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
And so what I would do with them is we'd go into our hearts and we'd release that belief of being too much.
Yeah.
And so I explained that our capacity to handle things now, because the energies are shifting, because we're evolving, we can handle so much more than what we were able to in the past.
Yeah.
And that is only a belief that it's too much. So have them check in their hearts, intuitively get, okay, is this true? They'd get a yes, like it's true, like it's that belief. But what came up with the duality part is we're going, and this is just coming to me, so it's kind of cool. We're going from this place of not enough. It's like we're always missing. We had a void. We want more because we weren't fulfilled. And then we get to a place of too much, not enough to too much.
Yeah.
So the belief that it wasn't enough. We had these voids and stuff, like as we're learning and growing and filling those voids, all of that, was technically, I'm not going to go into that, but into the part of too much. It's like, oh, okay, so now that we have all this opportunity, all this manifestation, we can create whatever we want. We have like everything coming up and flow. Oh, it's too much. The changes are too much. So it's like these are all mental constructs, exactly what you said. When we let go of these mental constructs, these mental beliefs, we want to see if they're even serving us anymore. Yeah, maybe they fit for the past, but it doesn't mean they fit now, because we are changing and evolving so rapidly. So yeah, that came up.
I love that. Yeah, that was pretty spectacular. Thank you.
You're pretty
true. Yeah, I love that. You know, and it's interesting because that brings up, I have a little story around that too, because I think sometimes the stories can be helpful in relatability. That I recently had an experience of too much in that good feelings. It was weird. So, because I've certainly had that belief around the too much of the stuff that doesn't feel great. And I've had experiences like what you're talking about. Like I literally didn't know if my body would survive this feeling of grief that I had back years ago. Felt like my heart was breaking, splitting, like rupturing inside my body. It was awful. But it was also really cool at the same time. Yes, it was painful. But I was watching one of those feel-good movies, those underdog movies where they like, it gets you right in the core. Like, I don't even know, it's just motivational. And it's this like, oh yeah, the underdogs are coming, and all of the changes that are happening with these underprivileged kids. It's the one with Kevin Costner where he's a track coach. It's a great movie. And at one point in the movie, I've just got like all these feelings of like, oh my God, people are so amazing. And it got so big that it felt like it was just too much for my body. It made my body really uncomfortable. Like, and these are good feelings. So, if I go into judgment of that, then, and maybe I'm in a different mindset, I could go into a place of thinking, oh no, am I going crazy? Like, what is happening? I'm feeling all this stuff and it's too much. And, instead of just going, wow, this is really big. Like, this is so big. And it was uncomfortable. I mean, we can acknowledge that something feels uncomfortable in our body without judging it as good or bad. It's like, yeah, this is kind of a lot, But I like what you said, because I think, what's happening is that our blueprints are changing, our templates are changing, our capacity to feel is expanding, our capacity to hold emotion and allow the flow of the experience to be bigger and bolder and on all sides of it. I think that's true, because I think maybe what that is, Lauren, is that we as souls are becoming, and maybe not all of us, but as a collective, the invitation right now is to what? Become more embodied. So we're going to feel things in a bigger way, the more embodied we are. That's why people who aren't feeling, or who are disembodied, don't really feel stuff, because they're disembodied. So the more embodied we become here in the human experience, the bigger stuff is going to feel. And you're absolutely right. It's about what beliefs have we assigned to the experience that we're having. That makes all the difference.
Well, It's interesting because, so I'm sure the whole like us letting go of control thing right now is like huge. And control is where we put stuff in a box because we need to understand it.
Yeah.
The part is that what's happening right now expands past that box, which is making us freak out, which is making us have anxiety, right. The fear of the unknown.
Yes.
And this part of it, I feel like this relates to duality, but I'm not getting the exact connection right now, but it's coming up what we're talking about, is like we're breaking down those mental constructs, those boxes that we've put everything in to understand it. Mm-hmm. And so all of this like control coming up is like, it's coming to like a head for like a lot of people, because it's time to relate. If things are coming up, guys, it's a good thing. It's a great thing, because it's time to release that. So like the anxiety coming up and the ways that we control are coming up, because we're trying to like control whatever aspects and that we used to, because we've expanded so much and we can't grasp it just yet because it's so new to us. That's the key. It's so new to us that we can't put it in a box mentally yet. So we're freaking out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this time is about letting go of that control, which is the fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
We have fear of the unknown, fear of that we can't understand it or compartmentalize it. And of course, anxiety comes up with that.
Yeah. And it's our constructs around the unknown, right? Exactly. If we have negative constructs around the unknown and the unknown feels scary for us, then yeah, we're going to have a weird time. But if we can be curious about the unknown and feel like, hey, all right, this could be really cool, it's a different experience. Like, I love the unknown. When I traveled to Egypt, I was like, okay, I'm not learning anything about this. I want to go and I want to have a real-time experience with a place that I know is absolutely mystical. And it I think part of that speaks to embracing the mysticism of the experience. You know, that being willing to not be so tightly bound, like you're saying, in that control of the human experience, and saying, you know, let's open our hearts and minds to something that feels mystical. And, you know, I will say this too, because this came up when you were talking. This is why, you know, everything that you're speaking to and what's happening and all the shifts in the collective that are impacting our human family, this is where it's so important for people to reach out for help from people who are, you know, like I went through my big shift in 2014 so that I could be prepared and go through all this stuff so I can be present and available for people who are going through it now. It's not scary to me. I went through that period of time where shit was like, oh my God, I got tested. I went through the initiation and it was the roller coaster ride of all roller coaster rides. You know, so I think if anybody listening to this is going through these fearful times, you know, within themselves, they don't understand, reach out to somebody who can help you understand and see it from a perspective that is beneficial and supportive of yourself and not scary. Because the mainstream, I think it's helpful to touch on this, because the mainstream constructs around mental wellness, at least in our culture today, are not broad enough to include the spiritual aspects of what is really going on and kind of the shamanic understanding of what's happening with people. And they will think and maybe even be told that they're going crazy or they have a mental illness. And that's not what's happening. When somebody's having a spiritual awakening in the mainstream culture, that is defined as mental illness. And they will medicate people for that and sometimes even institutionalize them. But what is happening is a spiritual experience that this is why we have these guides and mentors that are here that have come in ahead to help. So I felt like that was important to touch on.
Definitely. Definitely really good. Yeah. So, you know, okay, I'm saying this for everybody. So Cynthia and I, the person that we both know, is going through a hard time, and actually I was going to go in direction, but Phil shifted. So I was speaking to this person, and it's like how I mentioned earlier, I said things are so new for us now. It's like we don't know how to navigate it for a lot of people.
Right.
And so it was like she was seeing two things at once. Like she was seeing how, yes, this was happening for one person, and then for herself, this is how she was seeing it. But she saw how both were true at the same time. And she was really confused in which direction to go. And I explained that, and I had mentioned this to Cynthia earlier, it's just another way of explaining all of this, is that it's almost like we're shifting in a whole new reality. And it's like we have one foot in this new reality, this new way of being, this new way of doing, and one foot in an old reality. So it's like we're having these, we're seeing like two sides of things, and we're like, for some people, and we're like, oh, they're both true. It's like, wait, which way do I go? And it's like, it could be scary because you see this new stuff and you're like, I don't know what to do with this. And then you come back to this like old feeling and it just doesn't feel right. Is because you're stepping into that new way of being, and coming to that understanding is huge too, because again, we can be really confused right now of like what's happening, and that's a different way to explain it.
Yeah, that's so true. It's almost like someone else is having a different dimensional experience than you're having. It's like, whoa, wait, what is going on? Yeah.
That's exactly it.
That happened a lot for me throughout the time that I was learning. You know, I guess we could call it the initiation, and I'm probably still in it, but does it ever end, you know?
Nope.
But that having those experiences of what my experience was and what the other the other person's experience was not matching what mine was in their reflection on it. It's like, well, we just had a completely different experience in these past 5 minutes, and it's super weird. It can be very, very confusing, and it can feel scary, you know, but having that expanded understanding, like what you're saying, if that we are experiencing a shift into a different or whatever you want to call it, construct, paradigm, I don't know, like all these catch words, you know, but we're evolving. we're evolving and we're expanding in our consciousness and we're embodying more of our consciousness. And I think we're connecting more to source. So, or however people want to define that. And I mean, it's time for that, or we're not, it's time for that. What does revolution mean? Or revelation mean? Sorry, not revolution, but that's a good one too.
I know. I was like, oh.
We're having the revelations, So yeah. Stepping into the unknown when you judge it as scary can be scary. Yeah. Well, and people, human beings get comfortable in the status quo and in the belief systems and in the constructs that we have around things because it's just the way it's been. So being in that space of comfort makes something different often feel pretty uncomfortable. But if we can embrace the understanding that that discomfort is awesome because that's a catalyst for something really cool, we can use it to our advantage, then it can feel downright exciting to start to notice how weird stuff is. It's like, oh, goody, things are getting extra weird.
Exactly.
I'd rather have it that way. It's boring otherwise. Go ahead. Sorry.
You're hilarious. And totally true.
Mm-hmm.
Totally true. Mm-hmm. Something just popped up and it is time. So we're going to end, but I did want to say this last piece. It's like, as we're moving forward, so say with anxiety, say with whatever it is, when it's coming to a head, it feels the most intense. And that's when we're like, okay, I don't know if I can handle this anymore. But actually, when you get to that intense, that's like that breaking point where you're going to have that revelation.
Yeah.
So that's just a little extra for anybody that's listening.
Agreed.
Yes.
Bam. That was a great wisdom bomb to leave it on.
I want to say boom, but it didn't come out right. So I just left it. So some of the comments is Sheldon, hello. Helen, hi. Allie, hello. Sheldon, yay for the renewal. To me, understanding duality is like seeing a cube where everyone else says it's just a square. It helps us see the different perspectives of things. Yes, because we're expanding so much. Just that I've experienced some deep grief as well, and it's so humbling and powerful. Receiving help is underrated. I need to work on that. Receiving help is definitely underrated, and a lot of times we are scared to receive help, or we block ourselves because our minds try to control, whether you want to say it's ego, whether you want to say it's your mind, because we know if we get help, we're going to go into things that are uncomfortable. Yeah. So see for ourselves, is it because we like deep down, or subconsciously, we know we're going to go into something that we're trying to run from? Is that why we're blocking ourselves from getting help?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I feel that is that why I feel like I'm going crazy?
It could be.
Yeah, with everything we're talking about today, that's yes. And then Sheldon says, "LOL, wisdom bomb." So, anything you want to add to that?
I was just going to say that the crazy thing brought something up for me. I have a psychiatrist who's actually a client, and he was part of a documentary called I think it's called There's No Such Thing as Crazy. Like crazy is a judgment, So yeah, there's no such thing as crazy.
I've worked with people. I mean, I've worked with a bunch of different like mental illnesses. So multiple personality disorders, like all of that. And it's like, it's a way that we've experienced, that we chose to experience in this lifetime. And it's also like multiple personality is a way, depending on the person and the situation, but it was a way for protection, like splitting our personalities. So it's just different experiences. It's not like, it's not good or bad. Exactly what we're referring to in the beginning.
Yeah. Like,
if you that negative positive charge.
Right. If you take judgment out of the equation, it's just an experience you're having that you're watching yourself have. So Helen has a comment here.
Go for it.
Okay. Not used to getting help, learning to embrace life as it unfolds, it can be really difficult. It can feel difficult. Yeah, and that's why it is important. You know, I used to have a really difficult time asking for and receiving help, but then I learned that that was something that, you know, I was just doing that from a place of fear of being judged, fear of being vulnerable. And, you know, in order for me to be a practitioner and help other people, who the hell am I to help anybody else if I can't accept help from someone else? But, you know, the relief that is available and the care and compassion that's available is absolutely profound. And, you know, go for it even if you feel scared. Like, but find a practitioner that feels resonant to you, you know, and find someone who's working in a way that feels comfortable for you. Like, people that aren't totally out there in their spirituality and their understanding of all the quantum nature of things may not feel comfortable with somebody who's you know, in that realm, and more comfortable with somebody that maybe is a little bit closer to the mainstream. And that's fine. Just seek help, though. And know that it's okay. Like, because in that you're seeing that you're learning that you can feel safe here and safe in your own experience. And then from that perspective, you're having somebody show you that it's okay. And they're teaching you to be kind to yourself. And they're teaching you that you don't need to sit in judgment of yourself. That's a big part of it, you know.
Follow your gut, follow your heart with who to go to. If you're unsure, like both Cynthia and I can help you out. I know for myself, say if you feel good, you know, coming to me, let's see, let's dive in, let's see if it's heart aligned. Same goes for Cynthia, I'm assuming.
Absolutely, yeah. And I do consults too, so we can feel each other out and make sure it's a good fit. Like, I think that's important.
Yeah.
It's like a compatibility consult, you know. Can I provide what somebody's looking for? You know, I feel pretty confident in my skill set, but, you know, if it's not compatible, then there's another practitioner that is. Typically, if somebody's reaching out, though, they've used some sort of intuition to do that. So, yeah.
Typically, and I can feel this with Cynthia, but, you know, say yes or no with this. I'm the same. I think she just said this actually. I'm the same way where, like, we'll chat, we'll see if it's right for each other. Or like if it's in alignment, if it feels good on both sides. Because if it feels good on your side, but doesn't feel good on my side, then, you know, it's not compatible. It has to be both ways, right? And I feel like that's, I mean, you just said it, but that's how Cynthia works too, guys. So.
Yeah, I've had people reach out and they want a service that I don't feel like I'm as skilled at as someone else I know. So I'll make a referral. Like, there's some things that they're just not in my wheelhouse. Yeah. So, you know, they found me so that I could help them find the other person. And I have no problem with referrals. Yeah.
I've sent people to Cynthia. I've sent people to plenty other people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, Helen sent us a heart at 1234. I love that. Thanks, Helen. Thanks, Sheldon and Helen, for joining us, and whoever else has been on here. We have an unnamed Facebook user.
Yes, and we have quite a few other people too.
Awesome.
So thank you guys for joining. We're going to hop off. Cynthia, stay on.
Yep.
And today is the last of this video, but guys, I'll bring something else to the table. I know it's going to come, but I'm really just trusting and going with this new flow. Because also I did receive that, like, I've seen this with a lot of people, so see if it resonates with you or not, but I've seen a lot of people having to fully release stuff in order for that full manifestation to come in. And it's like, we're on the brink of that too. But again, see if that resonates with you.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you so much.